the original Meyer case, or the picture books, the first 2 picture books. Then Wendell had 2 books of the based on his investigation report, and the first investigation report. Then there's a supplemental investigation report, and then he finally, very reluctantly, published the content of the Pleiadian messages, which Billy had transcribed over 130 contacts. That's my basic source material for my original perception of the Pleiadians in that context. It was interesting because there was little snippets of the Pleiadian messages within the supplemental report and the original investigative report that were just fascinating to me. And I know Wendell had this huge, thick volume of Pleiadian messages that Billy had transcribed, but they were still in German. And it's like, God, I got to read those. But Wendell says, when are you going to publish those? And he would always be very, we'll get around to it. And so finally I asked him one day, I said, Wendell, when are you going to publish the rest of the messages? He says, well, we'd like to, but he says, actually some of the material in there would be considered seditious. I said, all those beautiful metaphysical insights about spirituality and God consciousness and everything that they were like, this is seditious? And he said, well, yeah, some of it would be. So then he did finally publish the rest of the messages, which I read, and they talked about how all our governments, our religions, and everything are all a huge conspiracy to keep us conned and make slaves of all of us. It's like, oh, now I get it. Now I understand why you would consider this being seditious. I don't consider it seditious. I consider it enlightenment. But then that's my perception. And it wasn't too long after that that Wendell found himself in prison for 5 years. Gee, that really validates the case for me, folks. Charlotte?
Shirley MacLaine was on Larry King last
That's right here.
and she said that she communicated with ETs in Peru. She's also a friend of Wendell's, and I'm wondering if you know anything more on that, because she didn't elaborate on it at all.
She won't call me. I would love to sit down with Shirley and ask her about her experiences in Peru with David, and just exactly what her experiences with, because I know she's been fascinated with the whole Pleiadian contact stuff for years, and I can see where our philosophies are pretty much on the same wavelength. I did want to mention real quick with the Charles Silva. Charles was told by Rama, the Pleiadian that he contacted, that the Pleiadians had a base, the Figu. Do you know what the Figu is? No. You know.
I read it.
You read it. Billy Meyer created like a collective farm in Switzerland for his followers there. And I know that during the years that Wendell Stevens was traveling back and forth to visit Billy and studying the investigation and so forth, Wendell was approached on more than one time by people working for the intelligence community who wanted to know how they could infiltrate the Figu, how they could infiltrate Billy's inner circle, because they were having a devil of a time doing it, and they wanted to know exactly what was going on. And then it was about 10 years later, the Figu became the Semyazi Silver Star Center, and they became like a business entity unto themselves. And at that point, they started bad-mouthing all the American investigators who had been, Wendell, Lee and Britt Elders, Randy Winters. I mean, they had blacklisted all these people. I thought, that just doesn't ring right with me. So I have been very cautious of the Figu ever since. But now we have Michael Horn and his website, They Fly, and Michael Horn claims to be the American spokesman for the Figu. For me personally, I have approached Michael Horn with my UFO Pleiadian art